Tonight on the Discussion Zone, our reporters talk about the NFL season and what's to come in fantasy football leagues. Which players are good for your fantasy draft board? We'll discuss all that and more on the Discussion Zone. Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the premiere of the Discussion Zone. I'm Mikey Edwards along with Tim Lateef. Tonight we're going to be talking about the NFL season along with who we think that you should pick for your fantasy draft board. So Tim, to start us off, I know you had mentioned about the power rankings before with the Colts on top. Do you think anyone is better than the Colts?
Well, they actually had the Colts at 5. No, did they have them at top?
They might have. I think the latest rankings had
They
them
did
at
have
top.
them at top, didn't they?
Yeah,
and
and
they
then
put
the Saints
at 5.
But Saints are up to 1 or 2 now. I just saw the
yeah.
latest power rankings.
I mean, how I feel. I mean, if they haven't beaten the champs, then they shouldn't be number 1.
Mhm.
You know, they're the defending champs. The Saints are, and that's just the way it is.
Mhm.
And nothing can take that away. So I definitely think that the Saints are a better team,
Mhm.
and only the season will tell.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for the Saints was their quarterback, Drew Brees, and he's actually listed number 1 fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
So you think he will still have the same impact for both the actual season and the fantasy aspect?
I think so. I mean, he's a great quarterback. When it comes to just quarterbacks on their own, I think that Peyton Manning is the best.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is the best. Drew Brees is a wonderful talent, and he proved that in the playoffs and during the season. And so as the season goes along, you know, I think I will stick with Peyton Manning
Mm-hmm.
over Drew Brees just for his consistency,
Mm-hmm.
time and time again. And I don't know who you would pick.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I had Brees for my fantasy roster last year, and he did wonders for me. And he, like I said, he's ranked number 1 now. Peyton Manning's ranked 3 this season. Going down the line, Phillip Rivers at 5. What do you think of him? I know he's been a little cocky sometimes and he has Antonio Gates who just signed an extension.
Yeah, Rivers, I mean, with the signing of Gates for another 5 seasons,
Mm-hmm.
Long as he stays healthy, you know, the thing about with the Chargers is that I don't feel like they ever had a strong receiving core, and despite that, he always seems to get the best out of his players. He brings a unorthodox style, kind of like a Rich Gannon, that underarm kind of throw, but he's a solid quarterback. And what I would like to see, who we didn't talk about so far, is Carson Palmer. With the accusation of Terrell Owens.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how they mesh together and bring their talents. And see, you know, with all those egos on both sides of the field, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, you mean about Palmer. He's ranked 15 right now, according to our fantasy rankings. And now, if the Bengals kept Hushmanzada, TJ Hushmanzada, who's now with the Seahawks, I believe, and had him, Ocho Cinco, and T.O., that would probably be a clash of the Titans, even though they're not the Titans.
Right. I think it'll be good. I mean, I think Terrell Owens, despite the problems that he might have had off the field or the attention that he loves, he's a solid receiver. And he's getting older, but he can definitely bring to your team touchdowns, consistency. He's a good third down receiver, and he's athletic after he gets the ball. The yards after the catch, he always brings that, and he's consistent with that. They did give him some incentives. They said, you know, if you get over 60 catches, 90 catches, touchdowns, then $330,000, I believe. And that's pretty encouraging. So we'll see how that goes. Coming down towards the end of the season, I'm not a huge fan of Ocho Cinco. I think he's a solid receiver. But in the playoffs against the Jets, he was a non-factor.
Now, you spoke about playoffs. Who would you say would be your wide receivers or quarterbacks down the stretch?
You got to go with those that we've seen do it before, and definitely your Mannings, your Breezes. Hopefully, I mean, receiver-wise, I'm a huge Fitzgerald fan. I mean, if he can get in the playoffs and the Cardinals are strong, that would be great. We don't know how far they'll go. We'll see what Miles Austin can do out in Dallas. He came along mid-part of the season, and I think that a lot of people they weren't expecting him to show up the way that he did. And now he's going to be getting the best that the defense has to offer. He's a strong receiver, and we'll see what him and Tony Romo can do out in Dallas.
Yeah. I mentioned about wide receivers. I want to actually step back a little bit, going behind center still with the running backs. AP, Adrian Peterson, he's number 1 with Chris Johnson at 2. I mean, who's your running back of choice?
I mean, Peterson's strong. He's fast. He brings everything. You can't argue that he isn't the best, besides just the fumbling that we see here and there. Chris Johnson is just a wonderful talent. What he did with the Titans is just remarkable. I remember him coming out of East Carolina University, and I knew he was a talent. He was fast. His 40 speed is amazing, but I had no idea he would do what he did now, even to walk away with an SP award a couple weeks ago. I'm a huge Chris Johnson fan. But with Adrian Peterson, it's hard to go against the power that he runs with. You're taking the speed, the movement of a Barry Sanders, the power of Earl Campbell, and putting it into one person. So Adrian Peterson, I always have to stick with him. And but Chris Johnson, he's right there with him.
And it definitely shows with their stats. I mean, they're putting them at pretty much, if you're playing with the salary cap, $36 million each. I mean, that's definitely big there. The projections for AP, let me just run them down here. 348 rushes for 1,700 yards for AP. And Chris Johnson not that far behind, 325 with almost 1,500.
Wow.
So it's definitely close between them. If AP's injured like a couple weeks, then Johnson could possibly take that advantage and become one of the top ranked.
Yeah, it looks exciting for the Titans. They finished off strong at the end of the season, and it was Vince Young coming in later on during the season. Remember, they got off to a horrible start. He came in and almost catapulted them single-handedly into the playoffs. So for them to start, with him from the beginning of the season, it'll be interesting to see what the Titans can do right off the jump.
And back to the wide receivers, Austin's actually ahead of Fitzgerald in the rankings.
Now, I don't want to be biased. I am a Cowboys fan, but I got to put Fitzgerald. He's been doing it year after year. Now, one that, we talk about Fitzgerald, we talk about Austin, but Andre Johnson out here in Houston is a solid receiver. We don't hear a lot about him because I think where he's at and who he's playing for.
Yeah.
The Texans were pretty competitive. They're in a tough division. But Andre Johnson, he gets it done year and year and year and out. And he does it consistently. And hopefully he gets more attention than he usually does. But, when you win, you get a lot of attention.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're an average team, it's hard.
Yeah. Or if you're America's team like the Cowboys.
Yes.
You mentioned Andre Johnson. He is actually the number 1 ranked for fantasy and the wide receivers, with Austin 5th and Fitzgerald 7th, as I mentioned. Andre Johnson's projected totals for this season, 108 catches for 1,458 yards and 10 touchdowns. So you want to try to play the matchups, but also you want to play your strengths as well.
Yeah. Well, you got to feel strong with Andre Johnson, with the Fitzgerald, also with the Miles Austin.
I have to get them over, so
they're consistent. So, well.
Okay, we'll be right back to the discussion zone after this. Don't go anywhere.